let's face it, uh, Greek antiquity, Roman Empire, the Lombard bankers, the Venetian bankers, the Dutch bankers, they all ran ultimately sound money systems because, gold and silver were money, and you still had the same symptoms of social dysfunction in those empires as you do today. And the reason was because basically the oligarchic abuse was unchecked. And so if you can't check and limit oligarchic abuse, whether you're using sound money or not, you basically get the same result. And I think an extremely important case in this sense to recall in history is the Russian transition first from communism to capitalism during the 1990s, and then a transition from an oligarchic rule to an authoritarian rule. Because during the 1990s in Russia, you had the rule of oligarchs. It was called Sembankirshchina, the rule of seven bankers. And Russia was eviscerated during those 9 years from 1991 until 2000. She lost, I think, 50% of the GDP. The GDP drop was worse than during World War II, during German invasion. The life expectancy fell to something like 57 years. The average pay in Russia was $56 per month. 40% of Russian population was underneath the poverty line, and the whole country was basically disintegrating. It was in an advanced stage of completely falling apart. It was a failed state, one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Then came Vladimir Putin, and very soon into his presidential term, what he did was he basically invited all the major oligarchs to a meeting at the Kremlin, and he laid down the law. He said, "Okay, there will be no nationalization of your assets. So what you stole, you keep. Your obligation is to run your businesses, treat your employees correctly. Don't use them as a disposable workforce. Pay your taxes correctly, and most importantly, stay out of politics." And this was very, very difficult for the oligarchs because basically until that time they were running the country. And so a few of them tried to challenge Putin. Then you had long months of legal battles that the oligarchs lost, which pretty much proved that Putin's legal backing and political backing was at that point much stronger than theirs. And these, I think, two or three oligarchs, when they lost, they ended up emigrating to Israel. And the third one who challenged him was the biggest, the wealthiest one of all, who was Mikhail Khodorkovsky. And Khodorkovsky was the trustee for Jacob Rothschild's interests in Russia. And he ended up actually in prison for 9 years. He was busted on tax evasion charges, but all the same, he ended up in prison. And so this was finally an unmistakable signals to the rest of the oligarchs. Do your business, enjoy your life, and just leave politics to the people who are accountable to the nation and to its people. And so from that point on, with the oligarchs disenfranchised and put into their sandbox, Russia just took off like a rocket. First gradually, but now we see that the standard of livings have improved immeasurably. Russia is now a very respectable economy, number four in purchasing power parity terms in the world. It's become again a superpower in terms of military might. And the Russian people are highly appreciative of all this. And as a result, Vladimir Putin has his approval ratings in high 80s. And I think that over his whole term, it has averaged something like a 76 or 78% approval rating, which is what Western leaders cannot even dream about this. And I think that the key transition point was basically to take this money lending oligarchies, so the seven bankers that were running Russia until that time, and to basically set their limits. And I think that any parent who raised children will understand this because you know how it is to be with small children if you don't set limits on them. You have chaos in the home. You set limits on them and they're wonderful. And I think that maybe the same principle applies to money lending oligarchs.